Good morning, Richland County, 9:30 in the morning, day January 24th. The Richland County Board of Commissioners is now in session. I'm Commissioner Cliff Mears, joined by my fellow commissioners, Darrell Banks, Tony Vero, our clerk, Stacy Kroll, our county administrator, Andrew Keller, Mr. Morgenstern here, Archie McMillan, WMFD, and Carl Hunnell outside of my view somewhere down there.
He was standing up there for a second.
If you would stand up, you could. see. Maybe.
Lawrence, also from the News Journal. Anybody else online? Okay, well, our first order of business is going to be with the Ohio District 5 Area Agency on Aging. So why don't you start by introducing yourselves and telling us what your titles are, and then we'll make that our first order of business and open it up to you folks.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Dewana Patton, CEO of the Ohio District 5 Area Agency on Aging.
I am Lori Rowland. I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
Trey Turner, Chief of Community Living.
Cynthia Daniela, VP of Governance and Marketing.
Nicole Williams, Chief Operating Officer.
Okay, so we're here to discuss a second resolution, levy renewal. The first, which was passed last week to certify the current tax evaluation and determine the dollar amount of the revenue that would be generated. So let's open it up to you folks for the second resolution, which would turn it over to the Board of Elections.
Great. So the second resolution would be just that, to send to the Board of Elections with the ballot language. What we also wanted to talk about today is the information that we had provided regarding the financial information, and just have a little bit of discussion about the true impact of the levy as it relates to the money and certainly the clients that we serve. So I don't know if we want to restate what we talked about last week, or if we want to kind of dive into some of the numbers or the questions that you might have.
I want to do a quick recap of what you covered last week.
Sure.
Quick synopsis, I suppose.
Yeah, so just basically what I think Trey Turner had shared with everyone last week was really just a story about the value of the levy, what it means for Richland County, seniors and providers and caregivers, in that we are able to utilize these levy dollars to provide services to individuals when they might not otherwise be eligible for the Medicaid programs, or when the Older Americans Act funds aren't enough to cover need. And in addition, these levy dollars are also used to draw down the federal funds that come through to the area agency. And I know that there are a couple other organizations that receive levy funds from us through grants that utilize those dollars for match as well. In addition, it allows us to be extremely innovative, which has been remarkable during the pandemic. It's allowed us to kind of set some best practices and leverage and share with the state things that we're able to do here with the levy, and then ultimately getting their approval to utilize the federal funds for the same type of service. So it does a lot of good things for seniors. It does a lot of good things for caregivers. Employers benefit when their caregivers can get services for their loved ones, so individuals can continue to work. And then ultimately, when we're using levy dollars, to the best of our ability, we are contracting with local businesses to get those services out. That's kind of what you know. Yep.
Other comments? No, I think that covers it. So this is going to be
I have questions on the.
Okay.
finances.
Oh, okay.
No, I was gonna ask some questions, so, okay. So, looking at financial information you guys sent, first question I had, when you list revenue, is that revenue for the entire agency as a whole, or just the Richland County pot of money?
So when you are, do you want to answer that? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, are you looking at the income statement comparative?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that is all sources of revenue.
Okay. So, looking at, your salaries and benefits, one of the things I always try to do, particularly with service agencies, including ourselves, is obviously salaries and benefits are supposed to be your biggest expense. It's people, that's your investment. I was actually looking at our salaries, benefits and fringes this morning as we wrapped up 2022 to see in comparison to what our expenses were. So I noticed, if I'm seeing this correctly, we had about a 5% increase, from 21 to 22, is that correct? 86, or excuse me, let me back up. We had a revenue increase of 23.9 to 22.5, and that's actually a decrease of 5%. So your revenue decreased by 5%, 2022?
No,
There are no expenses. Jeez Louise. Start again.
Yeah.
Provider services went from 23.9 to 22.5. Is that correct? Just trying to follow this.
Yes.
yes.
Okay. But then we show an increase in salaries and benefits of about 7.7%. From 8.6 to 9.3, from 21 to 22. So services, is there anything that would drive the services figure down 5% from 23.9 to 22.5?
So the services, so during, and you guys can kind of jump in here too. One of the things that is really, and you have to remember, a lot of this is Medicaid dollars.
Correct.
The people that are getting in-home services through Medicaid. One of the biggest barriers that we've identified, and I mean, I'd have to really tear into these numbers, but I do know that we are putting fewer services out there because of the workforce. So fewer people are getting services in their home due to the fact that we don't have caregivers at the provider level that are available to go in and provide those services. So that is part of it. I do know that after, during the pandemic and then a little bit after, folks were really hesitant to have people coming into their homes. So some of those folks that were reluctant have opted not to have those services. And then in addition, during the public health emergency, we were not allowed to take anybody off of Medicaid, off of Passport. And we have slowly begun to look at those cases, and some individuals have come off of Passport and we're no longer eligible for those. So I have a feeling that those are really what's driving some of those Passport and those service dollars.
And then when you think about the provider shortage, what the levy allowed us to do, and Trey talked about it in the last meeting, is it allowed us specifically for Richland County to start a new program, and we started providing some of those services. And so individuals that are coming out of hospital and are in need of immediate care in the home, we weren't able to find providers to staff that. And so Richland County, because of the levy, we were able to start a program to then have those individuals cared for. So you can see that with the levy, we're able to identify those issues in this county and then make adjustments. And then with that, we were able to, and Trey talked about this last week, we were able to make a case to the state. And so we were able to get a waiver to do those services and get those funded a different way. But without the levy, we wouldn't have been able to state the case to begin with. So we're always very good stewards of the levy funds, see if there's other options later on with the funds.
So you're dealing with the reduced headcount, is that correct?
On the provider side,
Pre-COVID?
on the provider side, most definitely.
Right, on the pro-
Yeah. And so that's kind of a nice segue into the increase in the salaries, is where we couldn't get the services from the providers, which will always be our first.
You're starting to anticipate my questions.
Oh.
That's the scary thing. The next question is, okay, so services are down 5%, but salary and benefits are up 7.7. Now, I know there's increases associated with healthcare, but ours were stagnant from 21 to 22. Now 22 to 23, they went to 6.1 for the taxpayers, but the questions I have that are coming.
Yes. Oh, I've stayed up all night thinking about your question.
My wife and I were watching Last of Us last night.
I'm glad somebody was having fun. But it is Nicole's comment is a really good segue into, our responsibility. This is one of the things that I had said to Trey is, we promised the voters, we promised people in Richland County that we were going to get services out. And if we can't get that from the providers, we need to figure out how to do it ourselves. And so some of the salary, the increase in the salary line item is because we have hired our own people. So when the providers, who are always first on our list to go to, if they can't, we will. And so that has been certainly impactful in this area. In addition, the nursing salaries, through and even today, because of the pandemic, the nurses' salaries have increased. And so we hire a lot of nurses on our staff that do case management for passport and levy and,
Going rate for do you have any RNs in staff or is it all contracted?
oh no, we have, how many staff nurses? 30?
I'd say it's a requirement through the passport to either get a licensed social worker or an RN.
What's your going hourly rate for an RN? Because those rates are really going up across the board. I actually just,
So far less than what the hospital systems are. But I'd hate to even say.
I know it's still a pain, an issue because we're still very much lower than hospitals. And so, we have to really try to recruit based on our culture and our benefits, but that could definitely still be increased.
And some of this, and we'll probably see more into 2023, is, not only do we obviously administer levy and services and supports to people that are eligible for that funding source, but as you can see, our revenues are fairly high. And so we also work with CareSource, and we're doing under contract with them. We're doing the in-home services for the under 60. And we have recently acquired more territory across the state to do that, where other area agencies have not been willing to step up and do that. So, I mean, this increase in salaries is really bigger than just, the ability to do the in-home services through our own staff and right sizing the RN. We are growing as an agency with lots of opportunities to serve across the state. Nicole, how many staff do we have?
127.
We have 127 now, and I
that's
think
direct employed, not contracted.
that's direct employees. Yes. And pre-pandemic, we had about 115.
Do you have a bearing on where that'll project moving forward over the next 5 years? And I understand 5-year projections are not bullseye requests, right? If things change, we could have another pandemic.
No,
I mean,
it's hard to say. And only because, there's a lot that's going on in the long-term care system. And the Medicaid system as it relates to the services that we provide. I would say that the salary and benefits line item will continue to creep up. One, just because of the cost of doing business and benefits in general, and maintaining competitive edge on our salaries so that we have people that will come to work for us. And second, the opportunities that we have to serve in other parts of the state as it relates to some of our business lines.
But also isn't the aging population a factor in that as well?
Absolutely. Yes.
We know we
Like maybe-
at least want to hire
We're getting older.
a couple more STNAs for sure, so that when the provider,
day spring,
Pardon?
we could use a couple of day spring, that's for sure.
Yeah.
when the provider network, obviously can't meet the need, we want to have a couple more because the need's there for sure.
So I understand that a lot of it, your revenue is Medicaid, right? Dollar for dollar on the services, it's reimbursement. But obviously, we're here for levy today, so there is revenue generated from the levy. So that one of the things I was trying to understand is you're right, you don't have a true carryover in the sense that your money stays with you. But if I'm looking at your 5-year revenue and expense projections, you can keep the levy dollars though, correct? Like you can have some money in the bank. And I'm trying to understand how that works as we move forward, because you're right. You can't keep the Medicaid dollars the way I understand it from looking at your budget, but I believe you can keep the levy dollars. So
That's right.
is that just the answer?
Well,
Levy dollars can stay with you?
yes, that's the easy answer. And
Okay.
that's true. But I think in this projection, what you'll see is we're extremely intentional in kind of understanding the landscape of the population and the impending needs of individuals. So we're great and lucky to be part of a national, network of area agencies on aging. So we learn a lot. So if you look at the projections, you'll see, Laura, you might have to just talk through this, but you'll see the revenue over expenses each year. And as we look into a 5-year levy, we're a little higher in 2023 than we would have anticipated. Part of that is because we had, COVID relief dollars, we had people not getting services. So we're a little higher than what we would have projected, going into the year. But what we do is we plan for the increase in expenses, we plan for the increase in number of individuals that we will serve. And at the end of that 5-year levy, we just do our due diligence to make sure that there is a reserve, because if by some crazy chance the levy would not pass, we can't just drop people. You know, we have to be able to sustain them and make a transition because they're receiving critical services, very important services.
And you expect the reserve to drop near over 30% then over the next 5 years?
Yes, which is.
Which is, yeah, I mean, that's, you want to use the dollars. So I just want to make sure that I'm not holding, I don't want to come back if I'm here in 5 years or not, say, now, Duana, you told me. Although there are some other agencies I'm tracking that say, oh, we're gonna go way down. I'm like, your money's going up.
So, yeah, no, I think we all feel really comfortable with this projection for the next 5 years. And part of that is that we learned a lot during the pandemic, and the dollars that we got during the pandemic are gonna go away. And the people aren't. And then, as I had mentioned, people are gonna fall off Medicaid after the health emergency goes away. And so those people in this county that were still on Medicaid getting passport services, if they are no longer eligible, we need to find a place to continue to serve them if they need it. So there's just a lot of things that are going on, and I don't know, we planned it, we've got Hawkins, the warehouse coming up. We want to increase our serving days for meals. We went from serving 30 people post-pandemic to
20 something.
120. And then if we've got them coming for a meal, let's do some wellness programs, let's do some socialization, some partnerships with other organizations. So really some good things. So I feel really comfortable about our projection.
Are the trends, you said you're part of an association of other agencies. Are the trends you're seeing reflective in the other agencies as well? There are some anomalies with our population.
So it depends on what scope you're looking at. When it comes to the clients, it's pretty consistent across all area agencies in the state of Ohio and even across the country. We all have the same pain points. We all have a lot of the same opportunities. When it comes to staffing and the resources, the provider resources are limited across the state and across the country. Staffing, we do a really good job with staffing compared to other area agencies who have a lot of turnover, a lot of vacant positions. To Nicole, because she would know. I think right now our turnover rate is pretty low, and we have how many vacant? And we have 3 vacancies, and most people have double digits. Part of that is just the great things that go on across this region and here in Richland County. Our ability to maintain that competitive edge, and not just in salaries and benefits, but what we have to offer. Those people that come to work for us and what the communities have to offer as well.
You made a comment about offering services to people under the age of 60.
Mhm.
What are your criteria for
Good.
serving individuals, especially if they're under the age of 60?
Good question. So the people under the age of 60 come to us through being beneficiaries in the Ohio Home Care Waiver through CareSource. So we have a contract with CareSource, the managed care organization, and they administer the under 60 population. These individuals meet nursing home level of care and are Medicaid eligible. So it's younger, we see a lot of traumatic brain injuries, babies that are born with disabilities that could ultimately go into a nursing home and get services, but families want to.
Percentage of that group that you can serve under 60 makes up are they called clients, individuals? I always want to make sure.
Individuals.
So what percentage of the under 60 group makes up your total individual?
Oh, I'd have to.
I don't need
those
both.
numbers, but it's pretty low.
That's probably
You're not eligible, Tony.
I'd say I need help, right? Yeah, so. He might disagree.
700 in Ohio. I think we have 700 in the Ohio Home Care Waiver. So it's pretty small.
In your region or all of Ohio, just your,
Ours.
okay.
Now I say that, but we've just assumed 3 counties down in the Columbus area. And we don't have those numbers yet, but it's pretty small too, if I remember correctly. It's not a lot.
Why don't you, do you have an idea why the organizations down there didn't want to do that? And why do
Why do we want to do it?
we want to go all the way down there to do it?
So the reason that some area agencies have opted not to is the staffing, the challenges with getting the nurses and the RNs that are required. And there are lots of regulations working with managed care. And if there's a risk of not meeting the KPIs, you can be fined, you can get penalties. And so I think,
And KPIs.
Key performance.
key performance indicators, and I think I don't know how many there are, but in the Columbus area, I think they looked at, we're having a hard time staffing. where do we want to put our resources, our people resources? And this is not the business line where we wanted to keep our very valuable employees that we only have few of. And so they were focusing more on the passport side.
I would say you have the best area agency in Ohio, sitting right here.
Would you ever come here and say you're the worst though? Like
Couldn't be here if we were the worst. You have, in my opinion, you have the best, and we do home repair for 44 counties. And so those area agencies contract out. We do service coordination and low income housing in Canton.
You
And
said 44 counties?
44 counties.
State.
Mhm.
Just to be clear to the public, that is not where their tax dollars are.
Oh, no.
Levy, it's Richland County only, but I mean, you have a very robust area agency that's willing to be efficient and make sure that they hire the right people with the right skills. And so we're looked at a lot to kind of pick up the pieces.
Thanks, Trey.
Honestly, I mean, as area agencies as a whole across the state, we are experts in case management and assessment. And I think it's about protecting that space too, as a whole. And that's why we would be interested in, coming in and being a part of that.
Carl, as we always say, if Chris Harris, Dawana Patton, or Jimmy Sweat ask you to go to lunch, it'll be the most expensive lunch you will ever have.
Why they don't ask me again.
You're right. When I always say, like, Nicole Williams calls, I'm like, do I really want to pick this up?
Yes.
You always pick up though.
Yeah, because again, you're responsible for me meeting my wife. I don't have any other questions.
Daryl?
Just comment that, I mentioned the other day, if Mrs. Vero spoke to you still, but
I didn't get invited to the wedding though, a little disappointed.
Well, you had one of yours going on, right? I mean, like, where were we there?
Carl, anything?
Just a couple. The housing study that was just done. You're at it, you're building, that's what I'm from River when it was grocery stores. Donut aisle. It talked about a lot of things, but two areas it touched on were the need for more permanent supportive housing and for more housing for seniors. Those were two markets that the project director clearly identified in the next 10 years. But when I look at permanent supporting housing in your forecast, budget's fairly flat. Is that something that you don't see more of a need for? Is that something you can't put more money toward?
So it's a really good question. And I apologize. I wasn't at the meeting where he presented all of this, but I am very familiar with that. We just, it can always be more. But we look at it as we want it to be a community effort. So we won't have all the answers. We don't want to put all of our money into that because I think there's others, excuse me, who could, come to the table with us, whether it's, developers or, the city or the whatever it might be. But it is an area that we're definitely watching. But when you talk about housing and you talk about permanent supportive housing or bricks and mortar, there are so many ways to fund that we would not want our financial stack here to be all end all. But what we are very committed to is working with other individuals who can help with the development. We definitely want to be part of it.
Did you pick up on that, Carl? They don't want their money to be a part of it. That's where they call you to go out to lunch.
Well, again, we're always.
That's where Nicole says, $1 million of ARPA for housing.
But if there was a huge opportunity that was going to make a difference, we would, this is a projection. We would look where the money is, and not just in levy. We would look at what resources were available through any of levy, unrestricted funds. But again, it's so much bigger than us. But we definitely want to be part of the solution.
Just like with Ritter's Run, it was a blended, there was home funds, the Richland County Foundation gave money, a mortgage, and then also some of our funds. But then even, with what Metro is doing, Steve brings in an expertise with the tax credits. And so again, always just looking at the best use of funds. So it's always been on Dawana's radar, housing. Something that we want to continue.
The other thing I am wondering, it's got to be a difficult task to manage. You have 127 employees. you do administrative work in 44 other counties. How do you tell the Richland County taxpayer, I'm gonna throw out John Smith, who works for you, who administers work in a faraway county, that his money is coming from that county, not from local levy? How do you keep all of that sorted out?
Oh, Lori, I'll tell you what, it is a job. We have a very sophisticated time allocation and documentation that every staff member completes every day to identify where their spend is. So I can, Lori, if you just want to allow, and it's a really great question. And I think we're probably not the only organization that does this, but I know, organizations where they charge out time to clients even, or whether it's clients or funding. You want to talk about how we do that?
Yeah, basically, so each of our funding sources has at least one, if not several codes associated with it, so that everybody allocates their time on their timesheet to their particular source. And then when we're reimbursed from a particular county for that work we do for them, through their area agency, it's offset against each other.
Good answer.
We're all very well trained. If you see the colored piece of paper, you'll see all the different funds. And anytime that we get a new grant, there's new codes that are placed, and then accounting as well as HR really keeps track, as well as the supervisor, to make sure that individuals are coding their time correctly. And then, I just lost my train of thought.
It happens. You're too young for that.
Anything else, Carl? Al, do you have anything?
Yeah, excuse me. Couple basic questions. What's the revenue generated by the levy, and what percentage of Richland County's operations services does it cover?
Yeah.
I can tell you the levy amount is, and this is kind of a recap. It's a 5-year levy to 24 to 2028. It's a 1.5 mil renewal generating 3,888,048 and 42 cents a year.
Okay, and how much of the local services does that cover? What percentage approximately?
Are you saying the percentage of all of the services, or what percentage of the overall levy revenues cover services?
Yeah, what percentage of levy covers services? I realize we're just talking Richland County.
So we have projected just a little over 2.7 million for services. I'm gonna have to do the math, but I want to also clarify that in salaries and benefits, some of our staff that are in that line item. So when you look at program, does he have this by chance? So
I don't know.
provider services are when we're actually paying a provider, somebody other than ourselves. So we're paying the home health agency, we're paying, we're paying somebody else. Some of our staff are also providing a service, whether that be the STNA that's going into the home, or the nurse that's going into the home, or the care managers who's managing the service plan. So some of that is a direct service, somebody that's doing INR with the individual to determine where do they need to, what do they need and who's going to pay for it. I didn't want to
Okay,
complicate things.
maybe I asked the question wrong, I guess. What percentage of your total budget for Richland County does that cover?
So does Richland County receive like $5 million of services and the levies $3 million? That's what he's asking.
I would have to break this down. I would have to break this down. Yeah, because he's talking about all funds, all services,
Right.
Richland County.
Yep.
I think we can get that. Yeah,
We should be
it
able to.
should be on the Medicaid system.
Anything else, Al?
Al, we'll get back with,
Okay. Anybody break it down what that levy would cost the average property owner, homeowner?
In the resolution, the millage would be in the resolution.
1.5 mil.
You have to go in and do the calc, Al. on the millage. It's
Okay.
1.5.
Yeah, but 1.5 isn't the
Actually-
effective millage, is it?
0.8, right? No,
Second paragraph.
I don't think I actually did the calculation too. Yeah, it is. Oh, Al, they'd have to get that for you. We have Dayspring at 10.
Okay. That's fine. Those are the only questions I had.
Any other comments, questions? Call for the vote?
We need-
I'm sorry, call for, do I have a motion?
Motion to put the, motion to approve the resolution, putting the issue on the ballot.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Oh, again. 10 o'clock. Oh, okay. We will recess for 5 minutes. Hey, we're out of recess. Richland County Board of Commissioners is back in session to talk about the first resolution for the renewal of levy for Dayspring. And we are joined by Michelle Swank. And
Very small stay.
title is
Operations manager.
Operations Man. Okay. Thought that's what it was. I didn't want to speak for it. Oh. Carl's still here?
Yes, he went down over the.
Okay. So, Michelle, it's up to you. Talk to him.
I created a little presentation for those that may not know all of Dayspring's many attributes and history. And if you will indulge me, I'd like to go ahead and present it, please. Okay, the first one is that I am here today to request the Board of Commissioners pass a resolution to renew the Dayspring 8 mil tax levy on the May 2nd ballot. Dayspring exists to serve those residents of Richland County that cannot live alone independently and need assistance in meeting their daily needs. We are a safe haven to those that do not qualify for nursing homes and are not wealthy enough to afford private pay assisted livings. We have been many people's lifeline in their time of need. Who lives at Dayspring?
Go back.
Yeah, please.
Uh,
There we go.
Okay.
Who lives at Dayspring? The ages of our residents range from as young as 30 to as old as 91. 36% are under the age of 65. Dayspring is a proud veteran-approved home. We have 20 vets that represent all branches of service. Actually, our veterans make up 40% of our population. As you can see, our residents are from all over Richland County. We have 70% male and 30% female. The idea of county homes began in the early 1800s when the Ohio State Legislature decreed that each of its 88 counties needed a place for their homeless to go. Our history is lengthy but proud. Since our first building was built in 1845, we have gone by many names: the infirmary, the poorhouse, the county home. County homes were created as working farms. Some years were better than others, and any shortfalls were covered by the county treasury. One thing that has never changed is the willingness and support from our community. When our second home was destroyed by a fire in 1924, our community was there for us. They took some of our residents into their own home until the third building could be built. For those that couldn't find a temporary place, tents were pitched in our front yard. The outpouring from our community was incredible. Those that have called Dayspring home have needed us for many reasons. During the Great Depression, some needed us temporarily until they could find work. Others had no family to help them. Still others had failing health and needed help with their basic needs. Around the mid-1940s, they were farming 250 acres of a 320-acre farm. They had 200 laying hens, 60 head of cattle, and 115 hogs. All the vegetables used were grown on the farm. Each resident had a job here, whether it be working the farm, feeding chickens, slaughtering cows, or working in the house, cooking and doing laundry. The thought was if the county was providing you a place to sleep and food to eat, you were required to do your share. If you didn't, your plate was turned over and you were not fed. As the years went on, the concept of the working farm fell away as they were losing money rather than earning a profit. Things had changed. More and more residents had become disabled and needed more care. They could not perform the work they once had. That is not all that had changed. With the federal, state, and new nonprofit organizations created to help the poor, the state legislature decided in the 1980s that county homes would no longer be mandated. Each county had to decide what to do with their home. Our county decided to name us Dayspring and turn us into an assisted living facility for those with limited income that could no longer live on their own. In 2003, the commissioners determined it was time to remove Dayspring's funding from the general fund to its own 0.4 mil levy. Richland County voted yes, passing the levy, and Dayspring was saved. Today, all of our residents are disabled in some way, whether it be physically or mentally. Many do not qualify for other assisted living facilities because they are too young. They did not meet the level of care required of a nursing home. These people truly would have nowhere to go without Dayspring, which is why the tax levy renewal is so important. Dayspring has 3 funds. Our operating fund is mostly composed of the levy and the residents' board and care. The Dayspring tax levy is on the ballot every 5 years. The current levy is 0.8 mils and will expire at the end of 2023. Our residents also pay what they can. For example, if a resident made $1,000 from their Social Security a month, they receive $40 in spending. Their doctor's appointments and prescription copays are paid next, and Dayspring receives what is left for board and care. The tax levy then subsidizes the resident for their stay. The actual cost of care for a resident is $2,300 a month. And when you compare that to the $4,000 or $5,000 or more that other facilities charge, you can see the cost savings that we offer. Dayspring does not receive Medicare or Medicaid funding. We are not a licensed facility. Our building doesn't meet the requirements since we were built before the requirements existed. We are always looking at ways to lower costs and save money. After all, it's my tax dollars and yours, and we're not going to waste it. Our grant fund was designed to track special projects, and I'll show you a few examples in a little bit. And our resident fund was created to handle donations. This money cannot be used for our operating expenses. With this slide, you see the 2022 operating fund. We are meeting our current needs with our funding levels, which is why we are asking for a renewal and not an increase. You're looking on there right now, you'll see that we were in a negative about 47,000. That is directly because of the nurses that Dayspring had to pay. It cost us about 98,000 from our own budget. So we would have carried over a little bit if we would not have had that project. And just like any household, admittedly, we are a big household, work on our home within our budget. For the past 9 years, we have slowly renovated the hallways, bedrooms, lounges. The pandemic brought this work to a halt, but we are now back at it. We try and save each year so we have money available to fix broken items or replace them, especially when they have aged beyond their workable lifespan. In the last 5 years, we have replaced our commercial washers and dryers. Our old dryers were almost 50 years old, so it was time. Our elevators control system, or brain, decided to stop working in 2020. And let me tell you, hauling clean laundry up 2 flights of stairs make you appreciate a working elevator. The furnace and hot water tank in our pest house went on the fritz and were replaced in 2021. Just in 2022, we needed to replace our commercial coffee maker and ice machine. We have dipped into our carryover to have some much needed work done on our water well and to replace our fire alarm panels. With careful budgeting and prioritizing needs rather than wants, we have stayed within our means to fix what must be fixed. We are always looking for ways to supplement our operating budget by applying for state and local grants. In the past few years, we have received funds from the Community Development Block Grants, the Gimbel Foundation, Richland County Foundation, and the Higher Foundation. Our latest project was the Nurses Station Edition. We received $275,000 from the CDBG CARES Act, to which made this project possible. Another huge project for us was replacing our almost 100-year-old roof. With a roof that is 20,400 square feet and stands 36 feet tall, it was quite the project. The $120,000 we received paid for more than half of our new roof.
And we kept the historical value to the best of our ability.
Yes, we certainly did.
That makes Jennifer Kime happy.
In the 2021 CDBG cycle, we received $50,000 to resurface 1,100 linear feet of our drive, widening portions of it by 2 feet and paving the southern parking area, and finally adding a much needed paved pavilion, path to our paved pavilion. Every donation makes an impact, whether it is a roll of quarters given directly to the residents or an ugly Christmas sweater contest where the proceeds go to buy everyone a milkshake. Larger donations are used in ways to benefit the house as a whole. In 2018, we received almost $34,000 in total from the Richland County Foundation and the Higher Family Foundation so that we can improve our security systems. Locks for all the bedroom doors, new overhead paging system, exterior door alarms, a doorbell interface, etc. The Gimbel Foundation's donations over the years have allowed us to purchase everything from picnic tables and a barbecue to ADA openers to new dining room chairs. Whereas donations from the Dickerson Endowment Fund, which is administered by the First English Lutheran Church, has allowed us to purchase 10 lift chairs, a wheelchair scale, and other needed items. Donations received from both these organizations, as well as others combined together, allowed us to buy a Lucas device. This device provides chest compressions to someone that has stopped breathing. As Dayspring is quite a distance for an ambulance to get here, being able to perform CPR for an extended period of time is an incredible gift. It is our hope that you see us as good stewards of taxpayer dollars and that we do all we can to use the money we receive wisely. As you know, Dayspring has many parts to it: our caregiving mission, the historical component, and well, just the amount of space we take up. Currently, the Dayspring property is 226 acres and has numerous buildings on it. Some are unique to our history. With our new nurses station expansion, our main house has 107 rooms, 63 being bedrooms, 227 windows, 18 chimney stacks, 13 exterior doors, and 16 bathrooms. Our main building and barn are the most recognized and dominate our landscape. The most fascinating buildings, at least to me, are generally overlooked. Our pest house is set aside for veterans and house up to 4. The building's original purpose has meant more to me lately with everything we have gone through. You see, this was Dayspring's response to the pandemic of 1908. It was built in the 1920s and got its name since it was where you were quarantined. You could only move to the main building once you were free of pests or disease. Our slaughterhouse was rather important when we were a working farm. The meat we used to eat was slaughtered right here. It contains 2 smokehouses as well as the tracks in the ceiling that would transport the animals. The root cellar, or as I like to call it, the Hobbit House, where we stored our vegetables and fruit. Our laundry boiler house is the oldest building and was built in 1889. It is the last county department building of the Victorian era that still stands. The old jail, courthouse, children's home, and second infirmary are gone. In 2001, all of the buildings on the Dayspring property were added to the National Historic Society Register. As proud as we are of our home and our history, what makes the Richland County home so special is our residents, employees, and the community of Richland County itself. Whether it be churches, schools, businesses, groups of like-minded people, or a single kind-hearted person, Richland County has given Dayspring support financially, emotionally, and spiritually. In the form of donations of food and clothes, their talents of singing, dancing, and even puppetry, Dayspring is truly blessed. There are so many wonderful people we would love to thank and let know you have made a difference in our lives. The birthday cards so no one is ever forgotten, the special homemade gifts to our veterans on Veterans Day, the donation of gift cards so our residents can go out to the movies, taking our residents to church. No county home could be more proud and grateful of its community than we are. In April of 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, when our surgical mask supply was running low and there were none to be found, I reached out to our community, and within 10 days, I had at least 3 cloth masks for every resident and employee of Dayspring. Dayspring has come a long way from the original idea of being 3 meals in a cot, because those we serve now need more from us. We provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week nursing care. Our team of nurses and aides are dedicated, hardworking, and knowledgeable. It is more than a friendly face handing out medicine, but a trusted professional willing to help, even if it's just to hold their hand. You are never alone when your home is Dayspring. We provide assistance with ADLs, which are activities of daily living, help during mealtime, laundry, housekeeping, and even a haircut or two. We have a full kitchen. Sorry, got a little distracted there. We have a full kitchen that prepares 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. We also help provide transportation for our residents to their medical appointments. Another important aspect that is usually not mentioned is how we advocate on our residents' behalf, whether it be solving issues with Social Security or setting up their doctor's appointments, clearing up miscommunication with the doctors and pharmacies, or trying to get debt forgiven. We are here to help in any way they need. Since so many of our residents are younger and mobile, activities make for happy residents. A resident's family member once said, "You go to a nursing home to die. You go to Dayspring to live." We do all sorts of things, fishing, going on trips, and of course, playing cards is big. Whether we stay in or go out, we have a good time together. I could go on and on about all the good Dayspring does and the wonderful people I get to see. But who better to tell you why we need Dayspring than the people who live here? Each person I will be talking about has given me permission to discuss their life and diagnoses. Gary is a 72-year-old and an Army veteran who served 4.5 years and was in country during Vietnam for 2.5 years. He is not only haunted by his memories of what happened there, but how he was treated when he returned home. As he was walking down the street wearing his Army jacket, he was hit over the head by a woman calling him a baby killer. Even to this day, when someone asks him if he served in Vietnam, Gary will tense up and wait to be yelled at. Gary has many talents and has worked at numerous jobs, but his favorite was working as a chef at Mr. T's in Mansfield. Gary has suffered a stroke that left him with weakness on his left side. He also has major depressive disorder, and that has led him to attempt suicide. This was around the same time that he was homeless, sleeping into an outside stairwell of one of the buildings in downtown Mansfield. Gary found us through his VA sponsor when he was unhappy living at his last apartment. Since his stroke, he has had a harder time caring for himself. He was also hoping to be in a place that offered a more social opportunity. Gary has lived at Dayspring for 6 years. Candy is 65 years old, a Navy veteran, and has been with us for over 5 years. While Candy was in the Navy, she was stationed on a supply ship where she witnessed what she calls a very bad accident. Candy was given a medical discharge due to her anxiety and paranoid schizophrenia. She has lived in Shelby since 1984 and worked as a dishwasher at the Shelby Hospital. Before Candy came to Dayspring, she was living in an apartment building in Shelby that she calls unsafe. Things were broken in the apartment. They were not being fixed, even though she had told the maintenance person there was a problem. Also, her ex-boyfriend would enter her apartment without permission and without her being there. Candy became so scared that she would drive around Shelby in her car because it made her feel safer than being in her apartment. Her church friends became worried about her because they had not seen her at church. They reached out and took her to Mansfield General Hospital until she could be admitted at Veterans Medical Center at Wade Park. It was determined that Candy needed a stable environment that could assist her with her medication, and her caseworker immediately called us. Mike is 42 and been at Dayspring for 10 years. Before coming to us, he had been living in a local nursing home due to having a stomach pump and tracheotomy. You see, Mike attempted suicide in 2008 when he was 28. Thankfully, his attempt failed, but his road to recovery was long. 2 years of surgeries to rebuild his face, dealing with infections, pain, and recovery mentally. As Mike's need for more skilled care decreased, his family began looking for an assisted living facility and they found us. A few of Mike's diagnoses include depression, psychosis, and seizure disorder, as well as a detached retina. Mike is grateful to be alive and now enjoys each day to the fullest. Just recently got his first job in 14 years, cleaning restrooms along the highway part-time. He continues to share his story and hopes that he can help at least one person not make the same decision he did. In closing, our resident population is made up of people just like you and I. College graduates, those that graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, white and blue collared workers, young and old, men and women. The reality is we never know when one of us may need Dayspring services. It may be me, you, your parent, or even your child that needs help. And that is why we still need our county home and why we need the tax renewal. I request the Board of Commissioners pass a resolution to renew the Dayspring 0.8 mil tax levy on the May 2nd ballot and allow the people of Richland County to give us the opportunity to continue our mission.
Gentleman who cleans the restrooms along the highway, he does it on I-71, doesn't he?
They move them around all over. We actually have one or two more residents who do that, three.
How does he get to work?
Well, they have to pay for a taxi service to take them out to work. We have one resident that can drive himself.
Saw him Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, he was very excited. He was very excited to make, what did he say? Time and a half? Oh, yeah. Or holiday pay.
It's really pleasant. He was striking up conversations with people that are coming in and out.
Oh, yeah. Our residents are, most of them are very social. I mean, that's why Dayspring does so well because the social opponent, Dayspring is pretty big.
Questions? Ron?
Yeah, so obviously this is a little different, Michelle. We look at your budget all the time.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's different than the library or even area agency on aging. But yeah, we still need to ask a few questions for the residents.
Sure.
One of the things I like in a good sense, obviously, we want to make sure we have a healthy bank account, but obviously if the taxpayers are willing to renew this levy, we need to be clear, it's not an increase. I noticed that you're forecasting your carryover or reserve, whatever you would want to call it, or whatever we call it, actually to go down. And not just build a bank account at the taxpayer's expense. So one, I want to commend you on that. That's something we look at, but you still have enough in there. Is there anything so if I'm a taxpayer, which I am, but I'm also sitting on the board that would approve it, what are some big, I'm saying, hey, what are some big uses of our taxpayer dollars moving forward over the next 5 years? You've taken care of the roof, you've taken care of the paving. We have the nurses station, so the taxpayers by way of CDBG, the levy, et cetera, have funded important capital projects. Is there anything you see on the horizon so the public can know what we're looking at moving forward?
Our boilers are anywhere from 35 to 40 years old. That is something you do not want to break before you fix. So that is actually something that Josh, who's head of maintenance, is working on us to get numbers and things to see what we can do. We have 2 boilers that we're hoping to replace, if not both, one, depending on cost and how that would pan out. Although when we do that, we are also supposed to be saving on our gas bill and some other things. And I'm also looking forward to that. That's a huge one. We are probably gonna have to replace our dishwasher. When we replaced the elevator, we did the bare minimum to get us where we needed to go to finish correcting that. That is the big one. I mean, at some point, our walk-in cooler and freezer will have to be addressed, but those are relatively new. So those should be around for a while. Oh, as my operations matter is. Dayspring we are so huge, we have our own water well that funds all of our that supplies all of our water. And we have to fight all of the different things that clean it, filter it, whatever you want to call it. So just continuously doing that takes a bit, and we're gonna have to replace a few things. But that's what was only about $5,000. No, it's 10 to 11. Is that how many tanks?
Four of the five need replaced. They can't hold the pressure.
So, but then again, that should last for another decade.
So you have one well,
One well that takes care of all of us.
no backup well?
There is no backup well. It's not required at this point in time.
Okay.
One thing the commissioners had to sign, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, is that we will always have enough money in the carryover so that if we need to dig and create a new well, we have it. So we have enough water if all of a sudden, water and things, if we had some kind of a temporary emergency, but if the well did go down, I will be making calls to EMA and other places so that I can get a tank or something in there too. It's not just the drinking water. You have to make sure that the fire alarm and the fire pump and all the sprinklers will work if we had an emergency. So I know everybody's thinking drinking water, but it's actually the safety of the house where you worry the most.
Got flush toilets.
Well, flushing toilets are big too.
Another thing I noticed too, and this is a good thing, I mean, I think we're all aware of what salaries across the country have done due to the exorbitant inflation. And I noticed as you project that you don't have massive increases for salary and benefits. So that's good and bad, right? We want to make sure we want to be able to retain, attract qualified people. We want to take care of our people. But also as a taxpayer and someone who will be taking a vote here today and Thursday, I think you have reasonable increases built in, but a taxpayer wouldn't come and look at this budget and go, why is there 50% increases in salary and budget? So again, I want to commend you, Aaron, Sherry, on what I believe is a very reasonable budget, keeping money in the bank account for major water issues.
Yes.
And, not having huge wads of cash where carryovers exceed a year's worth of annual expenses. So your head count looks good, your salary and benefits looks good. This is very detailed. We go through this every year
Yes.
in detail, so it's a little different than our other ones, but we need to ask ourselves the same question. So I don't have any more. I think this is a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you guys truly do is wonderful. So thank you.
I just have the comment that when all three of us have been out there many times and except during the COVID. And you guys do a great job. You're right, your people who live there are very social. It's always a pleasure to go out there, and we thank you very much for the job that you do.
Thank you.
Do an amazing job.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I'm out there. I'm just, and I'm really impressed with your staff. Your staff seems to really have fun with what you do with the residents. So
We feel very honored to be a part of the history of our county and to take care of people that we feel pretty special.
quick dollar questions I have. I see you ran a deficit last year, expect to run a deficit this year, and I get why. I get it. That's pretty obvious. But I have to ask, something that jumped out at me is your supplies food jumped about $40,000 last year, and then it's going down. And it's pretty stable subsequent years starting this year. What was the peak that was created last year of about $50,000?
2022 is a hard one because with the price of gas, which then increased the price of everything else, food has gone up a lot. So 190 was the amount that I projected for 2023 before I knew my final numbers in 2022. It's how the budget works because we have to turn it in a few months early. We're going to see what food does. That is one line item that I am concerned. If the gas would just calm down, because we're paying fuel charges every delivery, and we get food delivered once a week from GFS and once a week from dairy. And we're being charged a transportation fee for the first time ever. I mean, just as a regular person myself, I went to the store and eggs were over $4. I have not looked at our egg bill at Dayspring lately because it makes me sick. But food is an issue, and that is one that I'll be watching closely. I think our 2021 number of 162 is more accurate. If, like I said, the other things can calm down. But I don't know.
Yeah, but I know food is volatile. We all know that. Wasn't all that long ago. I went to Aldi's and you could get a gallon of milk for $1.
Yeah,
99 cents. It didn't seem like that long ago. Maybe it was a couple years ago. Yeah, it's volatile.
I buy the huge things of coffee from Sam's Club, right? And Dunkin' Donuts. I think their ground coffee is the best. A Couple years ago, they were $16.95. They were $4 off this past month at Sam's Club for $19.95.
I mean, most people would do pretty well in their budgets if they didn't have to eat.
Oh, it's more than others.
Carl, anything?
Just, real quick, how many, is it 4 or 5 years on the levy?
It's 5 years, 5-year levy.
And how much revenue does it generate annually?
Usually the auditor will come up with a new, oh, how much is it?
We don't know that yet because it's gonna go to,
Oh, what's it been doing?
Yeah.
is there an estimate on here?
Yes, if you look at the revenue, 2022 total was a 1,700,656.74.
And what was your carryover coming into this year?
Carryover ending 2022 was 1,981,000 or 6146.
How many total employees?
I think I have what, 42 right now? Close, I should have 42.
And commissioners, there's absolutely no general revenue, general fund revenue that goes to Dayspring anymore.
No,
We'll never say never, Carl. It's sneaky.
Now.
And that
I said now, never as in now.
it is our expectation that our outside departments able to operate without contributions from the general fund. And that now includes our dog wardens agency that did receive some general funds to pay down the debt, but the message to Missy is clear that moving forward, we expect them to be self-sustaining.
And if this levy would not be approved, what would that do to Dayspring?
Dayspring would close. All of the residents would have to find a new home and all of the employees would be let go.
We have confidence that that's not going to happen.
Once the word gets out of the amazing work you folks do. Be a problem. That it, Carl? Anything, Al?
No, no, I don't. Thank you.
Archie, do you have anything right now or? Okay, you're good. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Banks,
yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you, Michelle. Good to see you. Great. See you.
Thank you very much.
Just talk about Gachetti and regional planning enterprise zone agreement. So for the record.
Is Lloyd Rebar coming, Jessica?
don't know. I haven't heard from them, but I can.
Okay.
The floor is yours. Hear about Lloyd Rebar Company.
So we have an enterprise zone agreement between the city of Shelby and the Lloyd Rebar Company. They are located at 139 Technology Parkway in Shelby. They are looking to expand their existing facilities. This expansion is for 15 years at 100%. And in exchange for making sure that they retain their current employment base of 25 full-time jobs and 10 additional full-time jobs. So the potential investment that they are looking to put into the property, it is on Exhibit A. Let me make sure I get the correct number. I think is going to be anywhere between $8 million to $12 million. So again, 100% tax abatement on the expansion of the facility for 15 years. So they also, the city of Shelby was able to also negotiate compensation agreements for Shelby schools and Pioneer Technology. So all that is part of the agreement. So it will need approval by the county commissioners since the Shelby Enterprise Zone Agreement is under the commissioners' purview.
Gentlemen, any questions?
I think the Lloyd Rebar Company has been doing exceptionally well because they were, I think, awarded some subcontracts of the Intel facility, the new Intel facility. So they are trying to fill those orders as expeditiously as possible. They've grown last few years.
So they're looking at a $12 million investment for this.
This expansion, yes.
And do they do what it sounds like they do, the
Rebars, yeah.
Okay.
No, they're growing, they're doing good business in Shelby. It's good for the business, good for the community. Motion to approve.
Second that, and it's my understanding, schools, they're paying the schools.
Yes,
separate.
under a separate agreement.
Okay,
So they'll be made whole.
that was a second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes,
Pharaoh.
Yes.
love to see business expansion?
Thank you. And I'll just let them know that it was approved and they can move ahead with the expansion. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Stacy.
I got a couple questions.
Okay.
I didn't hear everything. What's the size of the expansion?
Let me give
Square
this-
feet?
If anybody doesn't beat me to it,
Oh, you're speaking.
yeah. It's 75,000 square feet.
Okay, and this is total manufacturing. It's not just warehousing, but it's,
Yes, this is manufacturing.
okay, and I did not catch how long the agreement is for,
It's for 15 years.
15 years. Okay, I think that's all I need. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Carl?
I'm good. Can somebody send me a copy of that agreement?
Sure.
Commissioner Bureau has stepped out for a second. So we will. Got there? Let's take a 5-minute break for recess until Commissioner Bureau.
Proxy. Okay.
think so. Again, you're not being taxed.
Okay, we're back from recess at 10:40. We've got other business to conduct. The first order of business is to certify the record of proceedings for January 19th.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
I have a ordinance to approve requisition.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
Okay, we have a request to approve SK Installations contract for installation of dog kennels to the amount of $5,950. And this is in line with the kennels that we purchased back in June of last year. But this is for the installation only, the prior agreement with the material by itself.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
Next, we'd like to look at approving an invoice for the land bank for the West House Arch. It's $47,963.
This is an additional request from the land bank. Playing catch up, if you recall, time was of the essence. We had the building or the northern part of the building starting to fall apart. And so they had to close down the streets. And they remained closed as we demoed the building. And so the company coming in for the arch, after consultation with the land bank, needed to build stabilization. And we needed to get that done. So the land bank is requesting that we approve that. Yes, it is additional expense, but the company came in and did a good job. Time was of the essence because we had the demolition scheduled for the 19th. So I will at this time make a motion that we pay for this out of Richland reinvestment.
For the sake of history, I'll second it.
Again, Jennifer Kine will be most pleased.
Yeah. It's a big deal, so it's a good memorial.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
And the last order of business I have is to authorize the hiring of a part-time deputy dog warden.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes. Okay, Al, I think I have I think I have the answer to your question. Mr. Keller, again, obviously being smarter than me, can correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding of what the Area Agency on Aging levy would cost would be $45 per $100,000. And when I say $100,000, that is the appraised, but then you have to figure in the assessed value. So we assess at 35%. Again, Mr. Keller can correct me if I'm wrong. So by my math, you take the $100,000 times the assessed value, which is 0.35, times the mill levy divided by 1,000, and that comes to $45 a month. Anyone agree, disagree?
Not a month.
A year.
A year.
That sounds good to me. I think Al should talk to Pat Dropsy to get.
Correct. So Al, you could double check me on that. Remember, I think when people see a home valued at $100,000, they believe they're getting taxed on the $100,000 appraisal, being taxed on your assessed value. So I think it's important to note that you're not being taxed on the full $100,000. You're being taxed at your assessed value, which you can find on the Richland County Auditor's website. And again, your assessed value is 35% of your appraised value. That's how I calculate it. Mr. Hunnell, you've been around a long time. Agree, disagree? Look at you guys. You all been around forever. No one wants to commit that that's right or wrong. What does that say?
It's more complicated than it needs.
Say words like estimated, about, here.
Anything at all, Carl?
Up on top.
Okay. Al, do you have anything?
Wait, Tony, what you were saying was 45 on appraised or assessed value?
It's just $45 per year on a property at $100,000. So let's say if you had a $300,000 property, my calculation would be 45 times 3. Be $135 a year if you had a $300,000 property. If you had a $200,000 property, I showed be $90 a year. If you had $100,000 of property, it'd be $45 a year. That's my calculation.
And to
Yeah,
put
but
it in a marketing prospect, that's 12 cents a day.
Yeah, but I guess what
12.3.
what I'm saying is that 45 based on appraised or assessed?
Both. Okay. So the way I do my calculation, I believe this to be correct. If you, Al, own a house in Richland County that's appraised at $100,000, you will pay $45 a year for the Area Agency on Aging levy. How you get to that is you take your $100,000 and multiply it by 0.35. That gets you your assessed value, which is basically $35,000. You take $35,000 times the millage, which is 1.5, and then you divide it by 1,000 because a millage is 1,000. To me, that comes to $45. But again, double check with Pat.
Okay. All right, no more questions.
Okay. Any other?
I got nothing.
Okay. Hearing no further business. The County Board of Commissioners is adjourned at 10:47 a.m.